Erased Destiny 2, The Knower. Chapter 6, On One's Hand. The summer sun was beating down as fiercely as in the palace, where fire mages were the most active, so Merigold was already soaking wet after the second trial. Opening the windows and pouring cold water on her didn't help. The building was unbearably hot. Looking out of the window at the hot street, Merigold realized that she had missed her vacation. She sighed and went outside. She had forgotten to take off the robe, so people passing by turned their heads after her, but Merigold didn't care anymore. The apartment was a mess, as is typical for a busy teenager. Clothes were scattered across the floor, dirty dishes were piled up, and the bed was full of crumbs. Etien looked sadly at her residence. In the palace, she didn't bother with cleaning. At home, she shared the chores with her family members and left alone. She couldn't organize herself. She told herself that it was all because of the workload. She replaced the windows with magical ones so that the stones thrown by citizens dissatisfied with the sentences wouldn't demolish her apartment. Unfortunately, the magic substance made a clattering sound on impact, so Merigold slept in an inverted quiet zone. Like it or not, despite the heat, she started cleaning. She paused when she heard a knock at the door. She covered up the mess with an illusion, put on a better dress, and opened the door. She was expecting jargon, maybe Rose, or even her parents. She hadn't seen them since she moved away in winter, and she felt a little ashamed that she hadn't found the time to visit them. Instead of family or friends on the doorstep, she found a sizable pile of poo. Without water spells, Merigold was forced to clean up the gift with her own hands. She slammed the door and summoned a lower demon.
Demon, clean up the pile in front of my door. And then clean the apartment. Start by doing the dishes.
Yes, your ladyship.
Etien thought of Zameth, whose demons brought him food in bed and carried his books to class. She thought of the crystal that kept order everywhere behind her, in exchange for energy, of which the undead ruler had plenty. Unlike time, although that hadn't changed. In this or that existence, Etien was overworked. She thought that her personality was to take a blame. The girl laid down in the hammock. She summoned the second demon to fan her with a towel. She thought about the beach that Nathan had given her, along with the resort and the drinks they served there. She didn't know if the property was still standing, if it had fallen into ruin after being abandoned by its owner, or if someone else had taken it over. Maybe Zuzu had taken care of it. She felt sorry for the nice place where she sometimes relaxed, where she had lived at the end of her previous life, in the company of Nathan and Zuzu, of course, where she had been building her body. She did not have enough time to rebuild it. Not completely. This time, she was not going to say goodbye to life. She was not going to give up mortality for greater power. Now that she had lost her spells, she had no use for the excessive power anyway. Well after midnight, Etien was awakened by an unnatural chill. In her first reflex, the girl covered herself with a shadow illusion. Then she summoned a black blade of doom, and finally she jumped to the floor. With golden eyes, she looked around the darkened room. Someone was sitting at her table. Someone was drinking juice from her cup. Someone with dark hair tied up in a high bun. Someone wearing the robe of the Lady of the Crystal Palace.
I can't stand the heat, so I've iced the ceiling. I hope you're not angry.
Of course not. Would you like me to lock up the mages responsible for the unstable weather in a dungeon?
You're almost right, although the unstable weather is largely due to my limitations. I can't handle fire as well as you or Elstar. Do you plan to return to the palace?
No, but I'd be happy to help you with what you came for.
Zuzu looked down. She felt bad. asking her adoptive mother for help, interfering in her pleasant life. She got up, walked around the room as if admiring the apartment. She sat down again. She lacked words, lacked conviction that she was doing the right thing. She kept repeating to herself that involving Etien was the only solution to prevent bloodshed. That, as the Lady of the Crystal Palace, she had to make decisions that were best for her subjects, not herself. Teardam was always causing problems, and now the Seekers observing the situation had been expelled from it. This only intensified the conflict between the sanctioned, lawless fortress city and the Crystal Palace. Zuzu had no desire to get involved in politics. She was unable to impose her will on others, to force people to accept her point of view. 10. She could be cruel and uncompromising, but still, she managed to avoid a few wars. If circumstances allowed, she didn't kill her opponents. There was a chance that her trip to Teardam would end with a few spectacular executions rather than razing the city to the ground, or possibly significant property damage and climate change. Zuzu sighed heavily. Even Etien had accidents.
There's one city, Teardam. It's basically a fortified fortress. It lies on the border between our lands and the desert. A trading city by design, a breeding ground for bandits.
Rebellious, proud, touchy, and very greedy. Every time I talked to them, I got a migraine. They'd think they'd make an impression on me if they blocked the river. I organized a nice flood for them in the desert. What did they do wrong this time?
The mayor of Teardam was murdered and they didn't elect a new one. The army is in charge, or so I heard. I'm afraid they're planning a coup, some kind of civil war.
Find out who's in charge and what they're up to. If they have any angels in stock, nip the conspiracy in the bud. Eliminate the subversives. Anything else once I'm there?
Mother understood the matter at hand immediately, whereas others had to spend hours explaining it. She saw no problem with anything, possibly the need to devote more time to the subject. She did not shy away from anything, even if it was a marathon in the desert. For the good of the country, Etien was able to give up her own safety. This aspect of Etienne's personality particularly bothered Zuzu, especially now that her mother did not have her former power. If Zuzu's problems were limited to one rebellious city, she would not bother her mother. She hoped that the mission would awaken Etienne's former personality, her love of thrills. That Etien, longing for her previous life, would return to the palace, and there, maybe her power could be restored, so she could take care of the weather and disturbed magical balance.
Publicly condemn, not eliminate. If you could, if there is such possibility, punish the killers of the previous mayor as well. And the situation needs to be normalized somehow. I don't know whether to impose a governor on them or let them choose someone themselves. How do I convince them to cooperate? What do they want anyway? Should I assign you a bodyguard?
Absolutely not. Appoint me as a judge. I also need a cooperation order and a decent budget. Send me my travel bag, that ugly pink one and one normal black. I need more power crystals as well. I've never been to Teardam myself, but I've flown over it a few times. An ugly city, so rough.
Etien tried to remember Teardam, but all she could see were the walls surrounded by sand, a wide river, and a bright, cloudless sky, gray roofs of some towers. Not enough to teleport to the city, not enough to prepare a plan of action in advance. The thought of spending the end of summer in the desert did not cheer Etien up, but the prospect of getting away from the stuffy court building improved her mood somewhat. She was finally about to submit a vacation request, but she did not think that she would spend her vacation at work, more difficult and dangerous than any job she had had in Sintra.
I'll give you the blank papers signed, of course. A military judge's power is not limited by territory, so it will work just as well in Tyredam as it does here.
I'm a military judge? What a surprise.
Merigold's bedroom was filled with shoots of carnivorous plants, which first fed on the demons. Etienne's poison ivy struggled to fend off the attacks of the more numerous and equally aggressive weeds. The clanging of the broken tableware, the rustling of the torn clothes, the crashing of the furniture under the pressure of the stems created an unbearable cacophony of sounds. Unable to use fire or acid spells, lacking the talent for the magic of life, Etien was unable to repel the attack. Transformed into a ghost, she flew to her daughter, who was trembling with anger. Such outbursts were rare for Zuzu. Only few people managed to make her so angry that she lost control of her spells. Etien wanted to hug her, to calm her down. Her ghostly body prevented her from doing so.
Your flowers are so beautiful. What did you call them?
Thorn wires. I'm sorry, Mom. I will send you a cleaning service and money to cover the damages. Nothing irritates me more than when someone deliberately and stubbornly refuses to follow orders. Yes, I assigned you as a military judge, even before our first meeting. I gave the papers to Uriel when I visited him to talk about Jared's case. Your mind magic interested Sonja enough to make a big fuss about it. I checked Umi's memories to confirm my suspicions.
Etien thought of all the investigations she had conducted, the tedious gathering of information, extracting truthful statements from living witnesses, the old cases that Phineas and she had tried to solve. If she had known that Zuzu had bestowed upon her the title of judge, she would have issued a handful of sentences and relaxed in a shady garden instead of suffocating in courtrooms. So it was just as she had thought. Was her weakness. She didn't change girls' memories. It was forbidden to use mind magic on children. Protecting human following the rules exposed Etien to Zuzu. Took her quiet life away. Was it worth it? Etien wasn't sure. There was Merigold as well. She had to do something about the girl before the trip to Tyredam. When Zuzu sent the plants back, Etien recalled her own loss of control over magic. In her version, it was much more dangerous. It resulted in the collapse of the palace walls more than once. When she discovered Nathan's second identity, Air Mage's quarters simply vanished. Etien had to call it a renovation and build something right away, what consumed all her power reserves.
Uriel is asking for a noose. Exceptionally, I will lock him up without remorse.
Please wait. Give me the letter summoning him to the palace. I will have fun at his expense before he goes to the dungeon for the rest of his life.
Good luck, Mom. And I beg you, be careful. Do not transform. No one in Tyredam is worth it.
After Zuzu disappeared, Etien summoned another demon, this time to clean up the damage caused by the aggressive plants. The 11th Lady of the Crystal Palace, who came from the jungle, took a liking to poisonous, carnivorous, paralyzing, and dangerous plants of all kinds. She used them most often as weapons. Tyredam, a fortress city, had the worst reputation possible. People traveling there would take care of all their unfinished business as a precaution, as if they were not going to return from there. Although almost everyone returned, Etien watched the growing pile of items and documents that kept appearing. Everything that Zuzu thought would be useful during the mission was transferred through the portal. After an hour, the youngest Knower's 3-room apartment had turned into a warehouse of more or less useful junk, broken furniture, and broken dishes. The most important document, the appointment as military judge, landed on the nightstand. Right next to it, Uriel's summons to the palace. The girl hid bags full of coins under the bed. From her pink travel bag, she took her more precious treasures, Nathan's hair, angel feathers of her children, aged dragon's blood, silver paper to summon vampires to her side, moondust healing wand she got from Eternal, her master. She put it all into a black bag, together with a pile of power crystals and money. And that was all she needed for the mission. Merigold added to the bag some clothes, utensils, and food. She quietly supported the decision, glad that she would be able to see another city. For her support, Etien didn't demand anything, so Merigold felt indebted to her and was awaiting the opportunity to repay her savior.